All right. Just want to remind everyone that we have some coffee and conversations coming up. October 18th is with the high school parents. October 20th is for Waverly parents. There is a change for the middle school due to availability. It was previously November 7th, but is going to now be November 3rd. And November 21st is for the Greenvale parents, and December 5th is for Ann Hutch parents. So if you haven't signed up yet, please go to our website and sign up. There is the SEPTA Polar Plunge coming up. That will be Saturday, November 12th at 10 a.m. at the Westchester Country Club. I signed up, so I hope that you all sign up as well. All right. Now, I heard that you don't have to go fully in. That's what they're telling me. I hope they're right. You could just put your feet in. Okay, you can go in. I'm putting my feet in.
What date is that again? Because I know I'm signed up for it.
12th
November 12th.
November 12th. It's cold in November.
Yeah, I know. So please sign up, everyone. And the proceeds go to SEPTA and the Special Olympics to support and expand inclusive athletics for our Eastchester students. So it's for a good cause, so please sign up. We're going to go to our board committee reports. Does anyone have any committee reports? Christine, I know you have Ann Hutch. Is that correct? Okay.
So the Ann Hutch PTA had their in-person meeting last Thursday. A number of items were discussed. Specifically, there was an allocation as to how the budgets have between the fifth grade committee and the regular PTA. Their budgets are proposed. I know that there will be a vote as to, to enforce or enact those budgets. If you're not a member of the PTA, I encourage you to sign up so that you can get all the notifications with respect to all the upcoming events. Some of the upcoming events are the Trunk or Treat, which will be, I think, Friday the 21st. I'm doing a trunk. I know Chrissy's doing a trunk. I'm trying to negotiate Matt to do a trunk. And then in November will be it's the first annual Ann Hutch fundraiser. That's on the 17th at Molino's. So it should be a very nice time. And I know a couple of us have already organized to get tables. That's it for Ann Hutch.
Anyone else? Jackie?
Hey, this is a very busy week at Greenvale. The book fair is happening this week. Family shopping night is Thursday from 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. Tomorrow night is the first Greenvale PTA meeting for the year at 7 p.m. in the cafeteria. And the Fall Festival is on Friday, and that is, I believe, from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. So that's all for Greenvale.
Yeah, and just really quickly, book fair is at Ann Hutch as well this week, so send the kids with plenty of money. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, Lori?
Has a PTA meeting this Thursday at 7. I think it's via Zoom. And then the following Thursday, the 20th, they have their trunk or treat from 4 to 6. I know I signed up to do a trunk also.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Vito?
The Finance Committee met with our district auditors, and the result of the audit is on the agenda for this evening. Everything looked very good, and actually I think it looked better than it has in the past. So I think there were absolutely no management advisories or whatever they call those things. I'm sorry, Lee, I don't have the lingo right.
Recommendations. No
recommendations, that everything they found was in order, and we were in good shape. So, and we're going to be accepting that on the agenda this evening.
Great. Okay. Judah?
Thank you. Education and Technology Committee met earlier this evening, actually, and ultimately I think we focused on some of the improvements to instructional technology that we're looking at. Some of them are based off of the study we did last year, and more to come, more to talk about.
Thank you. Anyone else? No? Okay. Yes.
Even though I'm not part of the middle school, I know that there is a middle school clothing drive on Saturday.
Thank you.
So it's a good time for everybody to empty out their clutter. I think it's from like 1 to 5.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Anyone else? All right. I think we are up to our superintendent's report.
Great. Let me do that from the lectern.
Okay.
Hey, good evening. And first thing I would like to do before we do Waverly is invite up to speak a new hire who is on tonight's agenda, Anacia Williams. And we're very proud to introduce her to the community again. She had been doing some substitute work for us, but now we're able to bring her into a very important 6th grade technology position that the middle school administration has worked very hard together with Jeanette and others at the table to find. So we're delighted that she brings just the right level of credentials, certification, and experience, because this is not an easy position to fill in terms of integrating the technology of it and the aspects that are important for student learning. So if you would welcome with me, Anacia. Why don't you say hello to the community? Thank you. Welcome. And talk a little bit about what you did for us as a sub and what you hope to do for us now in your new position. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you to everyone who had a hand in helping me get this position, welcoming me back to the community. In the spring, I was a leave replacement for John Blazer, and I taught 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, 7th grade independent inquiry, and 8th grade productive thinking, and I thought it was a really amazing time to be a guide for middle school learners when they're inquiring about things that interest them. So I'm super excited to be back in the classroom with them and be a guide again. Thank you so much.
So this is the first time that we have a school presentation this year, and it will not be the last time. I'm happy to report at the October 25th meeting, we plan to have the middle school presenting, but tonight we decided to start with our youngest learners and our Waverly School. So let me bring up to the microphone Dr. Laub and his team, and they're going to talk to us a little bit about literacy and social emotional learning, and I believe you have a PowerPoint as well, Dr. Laub. So they're going to include science of reading, the second step program, and some current texts that we're using with our youngest children and monthly themes. So on that note, you'll make the introductions. So let's welcome Dr. Laub to the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Valenti. And, you know, when you said that you're going to have more presentations from the schools, I was saying he's going to make me do it until I get it right. But, you know. So when you walk into Waverly, do we have the PowerPoint? Where's, oh. Okay, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so when you walk into Waverly, on the wall is written the vision statement for the schools. Within these walls is a safe, nurturing, and collaborative environment where students, staff, parents model mutual respect, caring, and lifelong learning. This vision succinctly states that we want our children to be safe, nurtured, learn to interact with peers and adults respectfully, and become learners. It also charges the adults in our community to become role models. In addition to the ongoing programs this year, we have had an opportunity to add a new program that will help us to achieve this vision. It is a literacy and SEL, social emotional learning program. I will frame the program in terms of the school goals and research. Eliana DeLuna, our assistant principal, is going to discuss the organization of the program, and Dorothea Carpenito, who goes by Didi, and she gives me a hard time when I don't call her that, will discuss what the children are learning. So well, all the schools, but at Waverly, we have SMART goals. And our guru of SMART goals is sitting here, so in case I get it wrong, will you please correct me? SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound goals. In other words, these are real. This is what we're going to do. This is when we're going to do it by. And these are the criteria to measure success. So the first one of our SMART goals is literacy. By June of 2023, 80% of KN1 students will read at or above grade level as measured by, and then the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment system, which is the system we use. Any students who are not on grade level will have been expected to have made at least a year's worth of growth during that time. This goal is reflected in the other elementary schools as well. We did these together. And then on the bottom, you have the criteria for grade level, which is the measure of success. Okay. What we're basically saying is we want your kids to learn how to read, period, the end. The next goal, and these are not all of our goals, these are the ones that are relevant to the presentation tonight, is PBIS. During the school year, a tiered approach to positive behavioral intervention and support to promote safety and positive behavior will be implemented. This goal addresses the question, how do we support positive behavior in the school? As you will see in the next few minutes, we will use the tools of empathy, understanding, and positive rewards to support this goal. And the other goal, the next goal that we have, is the 6-day schedule. This is something we implemented this summer. We put it together this summer. We implemented it in the beginning of September. This puts us in line with every other school in the district. Every school in the district, the other elementaries, the middle school and the high school are all on 6-day schedules. So we are aligned with that now. In a moment, Mr. Luna will discuss the 6-day schedule and show what it means. What this has done for us, however, it has allowed us to present this new course, and it has enabled us to create a more positive classroom atmosphere. And her explanation will tell us more about that.
Okay, good evening, Dr. Valenti. Good evening, Board of Trustees. Good evening to the Eastchester community. As Dr. Laub mentioned, this summer Waverly had the unique opportunity of designing a 6-day schedule. This schedule now aligns us to both the elementary schools and Hutch and Greenville. But really, what we want to take a moment to do is compare and contrast the difference between a 5-day schedule and a 6-day schedule, identifying those things that will remain the same from our previous schedule to our current one. So if we think about it, the first is the school day. Our starting time and end time for the day remains the same. So the instructional time from a 5-day schedule to a 6-day schedule does not change at all. Our school instructional day begins at 8:38, concludes at 3:05, providing a total of 6 hours and 27 minutes of instructional time during the day. Of course, I'll take that back. Not all instructional, as we build in our lunch and recess and other opportunities as well. What also remains the same is that our instructional periods are designed for 45 minutes a day. And you can see on the table to the right that outlines the exact starting points to each period. There is a 1-hour block in the middle because we do build in and remain to have 1 hour and lunch and recess for our students. So our kindergarten and first grade students remain to have 1 hour for lunch and recess together.
In our 5-day schedule, you would see that our students received a special class every single day, whether that was physical education, music, art, STEM, which were our previous special areas. Our students continue to receive at least one special area class every single day. Finally, what remains the same is the opportunity to provide enrichment periods. These are very unique opportunities and experiences in small groups for students to engage in projects that really elevate their passions in music, art, physical education, STEM, and of course now our new class and course. Now, what has changed? Primarily, it's our mindset have shifted, right? So what we identify as a cycle, and we typically would know this as a Monday through Friday cycle, has now shifted. So our thinking has now gone from thinking of Monday through Friday through days 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So today was not just a terrific Tuesday at Waverly, it was actually also day 4. And our kiddos are becoming very, very comfortable with this concept. We share it every single morning in our morning meetings, and they are really following things along. They're definitely getting the hang of it, which is great to see so early on in the school year. What this also allows us to do is that with an additional day in a cycle, it provided us with the opportunity to strategically determine what additional special we really wanted to offer our students. And the choice has been made to provide students with additional opportunities to enhance their learning and literacy and to really merge this in a seamless way with their learning around social emotional learning. Another beauty that we now have with the 6-day schedule is that our students receive their special area classes at the same time every single day. And this is so important, especially because developmentally routines and structures and consistency is extremely important for our students. The fact that they walk into school every day knowing at 11 o'clock this day, I will absolutely have, whether it is art, music, phys ed, or my special, that eases a lot of anxiety for our students as well as it does for adults. So that consistency is really key for us. We also now have developed teams for our teachers. In order to design this type of schedule and provide this consistency, we had to group a cluster of classes, typically anywhere between 3 to 4 classes, create a team. The beauty of this is that it allows every single day for teachers that are part of the same team to come together and collaborate in their planning and just continue to work together as a team. And we already see the strengths that this has brought about in our school. Actually, all of September, our teachers use their additional planning time to intentionally plan for Heggerty instruction, which we absolutely feel is an excellent way to lift our goal for science of reading in our school. So we are using this in a very strategic and intentional way, and we are very, very excited to have this opportunity. Additionally, what it provides is a win block. This is a what I need block, and this is a 45-minute period in their day where every team has this time set out where interventions are provided for students. That means that the number of pullouts and interruptions that occurred throughout the day have been limited primarily to this one time of day. So the teachers in the classroom are using this as an extra opportunity to provide additional small group instruction, to meet the individual needs of the students that are present with them, while those students who are to receive additional Tier 2 and Tier 3 interventions are providing their reading support where they are not missing any new learning in the classroom, which is key for us. We certainly want to make sure that tier interventions are being provided in addition to the core curriculum, so designing a schedule that would allow for this is really important for us as well. And finally, this schedule has allowed us to create blocks of time known as literacy and math blocks. You will see that in most other elementary schools, the literacy block is 120 minutes. At Waverly, it is 135 minutes because we have intentionally built in an additional 15 minutes of their day for Heggerty instruction. So the expectation is not that they will substitute anything in the core curriculum, but that Heggerty is absolutely provided in addition to any of the Reading Wonders instruction as well.
Thanks, Eliana. So what is SEL? This definition comes from a group called the Castle Organization, and they are the basic, the gurus basically in the nation for putting together the research and designing programs for schools. So we've taken it right from their publications, the definition. And let me just read it to you. Social emotional learning is an integral part of education and human development. SEL is the process through which all young people and adults acquire and apply knowledge, skills, and attitudes to develop healthy identities, manage emotions, and achieve personal and collective goals. They feel, they feel and show sympathy, show empathy for others, establish and maintain supportive relationships, and make responsible and caring decisions. Okay, that's a broad definition. There are 5 areas that SEL gets into where we think we need to support our children, and this is something I will tell you, with young children, this is really a wonderful thing to teach them, because this is something that they carry with them for the rest of their lives. So we talk about self-awareness. We talk about self-management. We talk about social awareness. We talk about relationship skills. And we talk about responsible decision-making. These are the 5 areas of SEL that are addressed. And in this program, we're going, and we'll talk about this in another minute, we are going to use a lot of literature, a lot of children's stories for the kids to react to situations and so on. And we'll talk about that again in a minute. Research, the research on this is very strong. Dr. Valenti, I don't know if you had an opportunity to send that article out to the board. Good. So then you received an article, which is one article. This is from another article. And the first line says it all to me. Research shows that SEL not only improves achievement by an average of 11 percentile points, but it also increases pro-social behaviors, such as kindness, sharing, and empathy. So what this is saying, and what we know is true, is that kids who can develop socio-emotional skills are also better students, because they learn how to work with each other and deal with each other, and in some cases even negotiate with each other. And I think that is the most important thing. The bottom bullets here from this article are equivalent to the sections of the Castle thing, worded slightly differently, but it's basically the same thing. So SEL is giving us an academic boost, while it is giving the kids something that are lifelong skills. And with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Luna.
Okay. So picture books. Those of you that know me know that I have a passion for literacy, and books are definitely my thing. But when we usually think about books and children's books, we often begin to think that nonfiction books are usually the tools that support new learning or help develop an expertise in our students in some way. But it's important to know that fictional stories also teach us. And what they're really designed to do is teach us life lessons, right? So when we have this opportunity to present our students with books that teach them, hopefully, these life lessons, it helps students really figure out who they are, who they want to be as humans, how they should interact with themselves, and how they are to interact with others. So we have certainly taken this information as a critical piece of information, because picture books also allow us to address and approach these conversations in a developmentally appropriate way. Right? It allows us to engage in these conversations through the lens of characters, often removing themselves personally from the conversation, but still strategically making those connections where students can apply the learning to real life. So we certainly want to, as one of our goals in this course, is take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that these picture books offer our students to help bring about the learning that we hope our students walk away with at the end. So really, what are the goals for this course? And after much consideration and much thinking, of course, taking into account our school vision and mission, taking into account our students' developmental needs that are very unique at this age, and considering our strong desire for alignment across the elementary schools here in Eastchester, we have identified the following items as our goals. One is we want this to be a place and a space for students to foster a love for literature and reading, right? If nothing else, let them develop a love for books, a joy for learning, and just an opportunity to just embrace those things that seem natural to them. We also would want them to enhance the literacy. Well, we want this to be the opportunity in which we enhance the literacy instruction that is happening in their classrooms with their teachers. So we've identified the skills and strategies that the students are learning through the core program, and we are intentionally creating lessons that lift and enhance that learning through this course. So if the students are learning how to ask and answer questions in a text in their classrooms, then we certainly are intentionally designing those lessons that promote that type of learning in this space as well. We also hope to support our students' reading literacy skills by increasing reading volume, their stamina, and their opportunities for independent reading. I will also add that Ms. Carpenito did attend the Hegarty training, and we are looking for ways to really embed in an intentional way the Hegarty instruction and possibly some of the phonics instruction that we are implementing at Waverly as well. We would like to support the SEL standards and the concepts that are being presented to our students through Second Step, which is the program that our school psychologists implement in classrooms. And we are aligning ourselves and enhancing our school SEL monthly themes and words, which Ms. Carpenito will certainly share in a few minutes.
Good evening, Dr. Valenti, Board of Trustees, and everyone in the Eastchester community. I'm honored to be here this evening, and I just wanted to go over with you a little bit of the space that we've created. So our library has been moved to room 223 to create a literacy/library center, and what this does for me as an educator is it allows for stronger connections to literacy and to truly foster that love of reading. So here is our monthly SEL themes. So far we've covered community and we're on to safe this month. So over the years, Waverly has identified these monthly SEL words and themes to support the developmental needs of our students. We hope to bring these words and themes to life in our literacy/SEL special by intentionally aligning ourselves as a school community. These words are reinforced by classroom lessons, with their classroom teachers, during morning meetings, around the building, and with their service providers as well. So here are a few of the picture books that we will be using in the literacy/SEL program. The pictures used in the special were suggested by the Second Step curriculum, which is an SEL curriculum used across all of the elementary schools in the Eastchester School District. These titles were reviewed by our district's librarian to determine if they are developmentally appropriate and how well they support our literacy and SEL goals. When I first reviewed this list, it really warmed my heart to come across such amazing titles that I've used in my lesson planning over the years, but also many of these titles I've curated in my own household library for my own children. So that was just a wonderful added bonus for me, not only as an educator, but as a mom myself to elementary aged children. So I have here some of our littlest eagles. We have a picture of a book that we read in class. The title of the book is Egg by Kevin Henkes, and we discussed ways that we could be a great classmate and friend. We went ahead and had a classroom discussion. The kids turned and talked and came up with ideas. And then we basically categorized like what a good friend is, what a good friend does, what a good friend says, and what a good friend is not. And they really took it and ran away with it. They even take opportunities within my class during lessons to acknowledge acts of kindness. I mean, they're really growing and thriving with this program, and I'm really honored to just be a part of it. I really am. Going forward, here are some more pictures of that exact lesson. Students shared their ideas. We created this interactive chart. Students worked independently afterward. They created a Ways to Be a Friend storybook as they listened to calming music. I remind them before they enter my classroom that it is our peaceful place, and they really thrive and enjoy it, or what? So it seems so far. And this is another story that we read this month, titled The Invisible Boy by Trudy Ludwig. We read this story, and students connected with the main character, Brian. This boy, Brian, feels invisible at school. He encounters many different difficult, challenging situations, and it's very heartfelt. It's one of the books I have at home with my own children, and students really, you could see as I'm reading it and as we're discussing it and we're asking questions and talking about it, students really do show empathy and empathize with Brian. They really feel for him, which is exactly what we want them to do. We want them to make these strong connections. So after doing that, we then, talked about how Brian felt throughout the story, and we created a reading response after, and they really, really enjoyed it. They really did, and they really understood the idea of empathy, which was really important. So thank you.
Thank you, Dee Dee. Okay, so just one other note on what we were just talking about. I do have with me for the board a list of all the books that are going to be read in the course, so that you have that, and I'll get that to you guys in a couple of minutes. But I wanted to end on a note here. The other day I was standing in front of the school during drop-off in the morning, and one girl was getting out of the car with her mom and was crying hysterically and clinging to her mother. And this went on, and this has gone on for several days, for close to 10 minutes. Okay. Now the girl gets dropped off by her mother, and I said to the other girl, "You have to go in now." And she said, "I can't, I have to help my friend get into school." She walks over to the crying girl, takes the little girl's hand, and says, "Come with me." The girl stops crying and walks right into the school with her. That's what we want to teach our children to be like. That kind of empathy, those kinds of feelings. And hopefully we're making a head start with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Dr. Laub and team, are there any questions that any of the board members would like to ask? Our team, please.
I do. I have two really quick questions, but before I ask the questions, one, I want to commend the entire team at Waverly for the job that you guys are doing. And I think what you touched on about positive reinforcement, there is nothing that my own children strived more for than getting a "you got caught being good" little piece of paper that prompts them to continue to be good. And I've heard that from a lot of families. Question about the 6-day schedule, because everything generally always comes down to attire. And when we have a holiday week and it changes and it's, day 4A, 4B, 4C.
Not at Waverly. No 4A, B, C.
No, we have numbers.
The only numbers, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
So how do you guys do it when it switches specifically for gym, for parents to know what to put on their kids in the morning? Like I said, it all comes down to attire.
One of the things that we have is a calendar, a yearly calendar that all of our teachers have received, and many of them share it via their Google Classroom. So that's one way to just keep track of it, because technically speaking, of course, with holidays, we just continue to go on to the next number day. It is with snow days that can get a little tricky, which we decided to just continue to move forward and skip that day if it is a snow day, right? So if it's day 5 and it snows, then we skip day 5 and day 6.
Day 6.
Day 6.
Got it.
So technically speaking, we have been able to map out the entire year on our calendar, and that is one way. We also at Waverly have at every single dismissal door and entrance, you will see that there's a sign with the day of that current day. one way to show families and reminders, hey, listen, today's day 5, so just be prepared because if, tomorrow will be 6. We certainly remind our students because we know they're the best to remind you, right? If they know they have PE that day, they will remind you absolutely that they need their gym shoes that day. But if there's any other form of communication that you think would support that process that we can enhance ourselves with, we'd be happy.
But it goes into the Google Classroom.
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. And then the last question I have for you guys is the monthly themes that you shared. Those are awesome. Will those also be posted in advance of the month in the Google Classroom so parents can support that at home prior?
We can absolutely make that happen.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you for that. We'll share that out in a way that can be shared with all the families at the beginning of the month. We'll also share out the full list so that you have it in advance as well.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you.
And that list is on the on the document we're going to give you with the books as well.
Yeah, and the reason why I bring that up, Dr. Laub, is I just think,
Right.
so much of the learning, it's a partnership, right, between the parents and the teachers.
Absolutely.
Us having that, kind of up front, and the community having that, I think helps to support it in advance, during, and then after. So that's super helpful. I appreciate that.
Let me, just going back to one of your other questions, let me make just one thing really, make it easier for everyone. If it's a day 4A at Greenvale, it's a day 4 at Waverly. We are all, so if the people have children in 2 different schools.
That's good to know.
We're all coordinated.
Okay.
Okay, so that's it.
Yes, Dr. DeMarco.
Okay. So first, I would like to thank Dr. Laub and team for such a wonderful presentation, and thank you for sharing that story at the end about those 2 friends. That was very, very sweet and very touching.
That knocked my socks off. That was just so, and she was so adamant about it, She was going to do this, She was going to get this little girl come in, and she did. She did do it.
Yeah, I think that was a great way to, end the presentation and show that, what they're learning in school, they're doing now without even thinking about it, for being a good friend. So I'm thinking back to when my children were in Waverly and we got their report cards or progress reports. Is this one of the specials where they are assessed or there is a grade? What goes into that grade? Is it the literacy portion? Is it something else? I'm just curious as to how that's assessed, being tied in with the words of the month, which I love, and those were also, great pillars when they were there as well. So
the revision of the report cards themselves, I think it's a bigger district conversation as far as inserting this to be its own graded course. But even though the data that Ms. Carpenito is gathering from the students, whether that is based on their literacy skills or really their alignment to the SEL standards that support the learning, we will find ways for her to certainly communicate this and collaborate with teachers so that it may, whether it is an individual grade, this is reflected in some way or shape or form in this child's report card, because there are some formative assessments that we can gather throughout the way. But like I said, I think the conversation of whether you'll be able to open up the report card and say, is there a specific grade for literacy/SEL would have to certainly be a much bigger district conversation. But we would have enough data on both ends, the literacy spectrum as well as the SEL side, to be able to provide some numerical scoring grading.
Okay, so it wouldn't be happening yet, like for the first quarter or for the first progress report?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
But that is, yeah.
Well, yeah. And of course, all learning is progress monitored by our teachers, but Fontes and Pinnell has a system whereby teachers are able to determine at what level a child is reading, and they use the alphabet. So by the end of kindergarten, every kindergartner should reading at letter D, okay? So that's the standard. If your child is reading at E or F, one could argue your child is reading above the grade level as measured by Fontes and Pinnell. If a child is reading below D by the end of that year, then you want to perhaps provide special attention to that child. So that's one item that is used and could be reported on a report card. What I'm hearing is that maybe we need to take a look at elementary report cards. Have they been revised, Scott, recently, or?
They've been updated over the past couple of years, not in totality.
Right, okay. So it might be time to revisit those. And we also use the NWEA, is that correct? And I know the question has come up, oh, you're taking time for tests, you know, taking away from instruction. Well, one could argue sometimes testing is an instructional value and has instructional value for students, but that is another form of establishing benchmarks, and then you could begin to look at correlations between Fontes and Pinnell and NWEA data. What NWEA does is it benchmarks it, for example, early fall, right, October, do it again January, February, then do it May, June, and, you know, we measure what we treasure. Second time I said that tonight. But in effect, there is an argument for measure, that you do want to see what the progress is, and is it within the realm of acceptability. Every educator agrees that all children should read by the end of grade 3. There should be a proficiency level there, and that's an ideal. We've set 80% as our mastery level for this year, but ultimately one would argue it should be 100%, being at an acceptable reading level by the end of grade 3.
So in theory, could there be two different NWEA assessments based on the SEL and the student's classroom teacher? Or would that be in collaboration?
NWEA is more academically oriented toward literacy skills and math skills. SEL is measured best in terms of survey methodology, and I think we're going to talk a little bit later, about Panorama, which is a form of survey analysis that Scott may want to say a few words about in terms of where are children attitudinally. How does a child feel about being in school? Do you feel comfortable with your friends or not? So like-type surveys can be very helpful in determining at what level a child is at, or an adult, quite frankly. And you read about a lot of these surveys in the literature in general, you know, so that's another way of measurement. You can measure both academic skills and you can measure values, et cetera, but you can use different and should use different types of measurements for them.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then IQ measures something different again, okay? Not necessarily academic, but my capacity to bring about relationships amongst and between different items that doesn't necessarily use language, okay? It's more of a data relationship, if you will, okay? One thing you guys didn't talk about, would you want to talk about phonemic awareness? Because that's rather new, isn't it, to the community here? Am I right? Phonemic awareness, how long have we been doing that?
We've been doing elements of phonemic awareness for a while, but I think we've exemplified it by introduction of Hegarty and
Across
other pieces.
the board?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what does Hegarty tell us at the earliest levels, whoever?
Absolutely. So Reading Wonders does have a phonemic awareness component, so our students have been receiving instruction in phonemic awareness for a number of years. However, Hegarty provides a slightly different approach to this learning and instruction. It does include a sequence of about 8 very complex skills that the students would develop, which is understanding the initial sounds, and it's all based on auditory skills. So we're really not asking students to identify the visual graphophonic representation of a sound, but really be able to distinguish, listen to the sounds at initial sounds, medial sounds, be able to manipulate sounds in a different way. So for example, they may be asked to listen to the word, the sounds k, t. And what happens if I now take the sound k and change it to m? And now what does that become? It becomes at, mat, right? So the students begin to make these connections and isolate the sounds as they listen to them There are some very important hand gestures and motions that help the students make those connections. The beautiful thing is that we're starting to see the students bring those connections with their hand gestures into the learning. So during a completely different lesson, actually, they were now finally learning that the letter A in one of the classes is the sound that makes it's the letter that makes the ah sound, or two sounds, because they learned about both short and long vowels today. And I actually saw some of the students asking each other questions like Heggerty, right? So now they're prompting to their partners and their friends and their peers to challenge their thinking just a bit more. So the initial question was, can you think of words that begin with the sound ah or a? And now, as the students walked around, I actually heard some of them say, well, if you change the first sound and you change it from the to the k, what does it make? And I was like, yes, good. So they're really beginning to feel comfortable. They're learning those relationships. And we hope that then when we introduce and make those connections to phonics, where we now introduce this is the letter that makes the sound that you've heard so much and you've become so comfortable with, then they're able to pay attention to print in a much more specific way, right? Now we want them to be able to make those connections that the prints they see and those letters truly represent the phonemes and the sounds that they have learned through Heggerty. So the marriage is happening, it's coming to life, and I guess, that's the best way to truly measure learning is when they're able to apply it across their day. So it's going well, and this is just the beginning. So as our teachers and our students become more comfortable, we really hope that this comes to life at Waverly in a very special way.
Thank you. Any other questions from board members?
It's a real quick question on the schedule, the daily schedule. When you say the students have the same special at the same time every day, you mean each homeroom, not all the homerooms don't have the same special at the same time? Absolutely. Okay, so room 1 could have music in first period and room 2 could have it in second period? Okay.
Yes, but at the same time every day. So the
Yes.
special will change from day to day, but they know that at that time, at 9:30, this is what's going to happen throughout my day.
Okay.
Getting ready for that learning.
Thank you.
I have a question. But first, I just want to say thank you so much. That was a great presentation. And I love the themes of kindness and empathy. But I also appreciate the book, It's Okay to Make Mistakes, because I think there are a lot of kids who are little perfectionists. And I have some personal experience with some of my own kids with that, and I think it carries on, as the work gets harder, when they go into middle school and high school, when they put so much pressure on themselves. So I love to see that that's being taught at such an early age. I think that's so important. And I did have one question about positive behavior interventions. I know that previously, classrooms had behavior charts that focused on negative behaviors, moving your name to yellow if you're doing something wrong. And I know that current research shows that focusing on positive behaviors, catching them being good, is really what's great for their social and emotional health. So I just wanted to ask, are all classrooms utilizing positive behavior approaches?
All classrooms, we no longer have those other charts. Okay, so positive, and I was in a classroom today where the kids got an extra fuzzy ball, and they were so excited because if they get one more, they get some sort of a treat.
Yeah.
Yes, so those charts are gone. There's no, green, yellow, red. That's gone.
Great.
Instead of having the red card, they've added a sort of a reflection sticker on it. And it really is an opportunity to reflect on your choices, right? So it is not frowned upon, right? Because reflection is encouraged. It is never something negative. But there are some times that we make choices that we just need to take a moment to reflect. And that reflection will turn into something positive, into a learning experience. And our students do not experience being on red or being shamed in any way for their choices. But there is an opportunity to have these meaningful conversations where they may get to a point of reflection in their chart with no red at all.
That sounds great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right, let's give him another round of applause. Thank you. Nice job. Good, thank you. Free PowerPoint. Okay, very good. So let's move beyond where we're at. I'd like to give a very brief presentation on priority 3 that the board has set. You know, we have 3 priorities. Number 1, strengthen security. Number 2, strengthen academic programs and student outcomes. And number 3, strengthening college, career, and counseling services. Let's start with an invite. We're very proud that on October 26th at Eastchester High School, on or about 6:30 p.m., we've invited all of our grade 8 parent and students to come to a, for want of a better term, let's celebrate Eastchester High School and why you should be coming to Eastchester High School. And as you know, the big change here is that we're not doing it in March, we're doing it in October. And we want to remain competitive with other choices that our students do have. We understand some will make choices other than Eastchester High School, but we would like them to know what they'll be missing if they make those choices. So I think that's a fair move on our part, and it's becoming more competitive with parochial private schools who begin at this time of the year, literally with their testing and with their advertisements, et cetera. So Eastchester is getting right in there at this point. So I wanted to put that on everyone's radar and invite all of our board members. The structure of the meeting will be a general meeting early on, and then we'll move into groups wherein the guidance department will have meetings, academic groups will have meetings, subject area meetings. So you'll leave with a very good sense of what your 9th grade curriculum will be, as well as extracurricular activities, athletics, and to some degree what a 4-year program would look like. Let me talk a little bit about our guidance plan. I don't know if everyone is familiar with the fact that the State Education Department, during the period of COVID, if you notice 2020, issued new state requirements in the area of guidance counseling services. To some degree, Eastchester is right on target, and that's good, and we ought to celebrate that. One of their requirements is that every school district should have K-12 certified counselors. Most school districts only had them at the secondary level and have moved to elementary as well, and we now have them at each level as well. So on the checklist, check that off, net plus, we're there. The state also now requires that our counseling program include these 3 elements: social emotional learning, which I think Dr. Laub and his team very well described and defined this evening, academic skills, obviously, and college and career counseling. And the state developed a overall comprehensive plan wherein teachers and counselors would collaborate on ensuring these 3 elements existed, grades K-12, okay? They also included grades 6 to 12 annual individual student progress reviews. So in effect, when you get to the secondary level, we need to ensure by policy and plan that we are acknowledging those areas, monitoring student progress, and where necessary, intervene. We are working right now on the plan to ensure that the 2 bullets are in place, and we'll be bringing to the Board of Education a plan that does specify that going forward. Another new state requirement, as I mentioned, district comprehensive plan as well as building. So not only would Waverly have a plan, or Ann Hutch or Greenvale or the middle school or high school, but then there will be a district plan as well. That must be updated annually. So it's not something, you know, you tuck away and forget about, but it's a living document, it's dynamic, and is constantly reviewed and looked at. It should be available on the website, so any one of our residents, not just simply parents, could look and see to what degree are we complying with and fulfilling a comprehensive plan in the areas that I had mentioned earlier. Another new state requirement is that every district have a district advisory council. And this is one that I really want to focus on this evening because we don't, and we will, and it will meet, according to state requirements this year, minimally twice. That council must meet twice annually. And fundamentally, you can see the members on the council who would be the stakeholders involved, right? So I'd like to run through it quickly and then ask Scott to fill in a couple of the blanks because he's working with me collaboratively on putting this team together, or this council. Members of the school board, there will be 3 in number, are officers, president, vice president, secretary. So they will be invited to council meetings. Parents, I sent an email to Michelle Forsaglier, the president of district-wide PTA, and asked if she would recommend with her PTA council a parent from the elementary, 1 parent from middle, and 1 from high school to fill that particular, those particular slots. Scott, do you and Greg want to say a word or two about teachers, counselors, PPS, building and school leaders?
Absolutely. So obviously, Dr. Valente, myself, and Dr. Stowell will be serving on this committee. Joining us will also be Brad Gitlin, our Director of Athletics, a critical part of this process. We have 2 of our principals that'll be joining us on the committee, Dr. Capuano from the high school representing secondary, and Dr. Keene will be representing the elementary folks for us. In terms of our counselors, we're going to have 5 counselors that are going to represent the counseling department. Rachel Marzarski, who is our counselor at Greenvale, will be the elementary rep. We'll have 2 from middle school. Danielle Fiore and Christine Rodriguez Mejia will be joining us, and 2 from the high school. Right now it looks like it's going to be Janice Chrissy and Brianne Brower who will be joining us for that. We're in the process of looking for a middle school teacher and a high school teacher. Want to find the right people to represent the teaching staff on there. The high school is helping us to find a high school student representative to aid us in that. And recently had some great conversations with a community member who has expressed interest in being a member of the committee. Her name is Nicole Engelbert, and she works in a field that is relative to this whole discussion, and we believe would make a great addition to the committee. So Dr. Valente and I will be meeting with her later this week to solidify her possible participation on the committee. So all in all, it looks about 21 people to come together and to have a great discussion around moving our program forward in new directions.
Okay, good. Thank you, Scott. Yes, Nicole was recommended by one of our PTAs. She works in higher education for a corporation, so she brings to the table a different perspective and could be very helpful to us in terms of the college career counseling area. 2 final points on this. we'd like to have one meeting of the council no later than December of this year, a second meeting in the May timeframe to meet the minimum requirements, and then to bring to the board, if not sooner, our comprehensive plan for approval. Okay? So that's something that you could put on your calendar as we go forward. I want to say a word or two about 23, 24, and something that I'd like to see us try and build into the budget. Eastchester did have a K-12 director. I don't think you called it college career counseling. I believe it was guidance services, but it was K-12. And apparently that position was fine for a year. The incumbent left, and then it remained vacant, okay? So I would like to resurrect that position for several reasons. Number one, now that we're looking at this as a K-12 effort that talks about district-wide counselors, collaboration with all the school principals, collaboration with coordinators, directors at different levels, I think it warrants, and it's important enough that it have its own director with a very specific job description who is administratively certified and would not only provide evaluations of our guidance counselors, but also would provide coordination with the parent body, with the school district in general, as our literacy and STEM coordinators, directors do. We'll be advertising this position in the January, February timeframe. Hopefully have someone identified by March, April, and hopefully if and when the budget passes, we would be in a position to offer to this finalist the directorship. And closely allied to that is, where do you put this person? Well, rather than just find an office for the individual, we'd like to link the person's appointment to a college and career center so that this individual would not simply be responsible for coordination of guidance within district, but would be our outreach person to colleges in general, and would create a college and career center that housed our Naviance program, other software systems we have, invited deans in, academics in to meet with students, and where it really became a busy place. Would like to see it busy with the excitement of a lot of our seniors, juniors, freshmen walking in and inquiring about opportunities and options. So I want to put that out there as an initiative closely linked to this comprehensive plan. I think that's my presentation. That is the last one. It won't give me any more, so it's telling me to stop talking, at which point I think it's wise to stop talking. So I do want to mention a few other items that are not in PowerPoint. Question has come up about band uniforms not necessarily being in the best shape. That is true. I met with the high school principal, Dr. Capuano, and representatives from the music department, and the short and long story is that they were hoping to get band uniforms in this year's budget. They were not considered as a high priority at the time, so there was no money budgeted. I will be working with our business official, Lee Liu, to see if we can find some monies so that they have some minimum slacks, shirts for their trip to Florida, so that they feel that they're representing Eastchester in the proper way. And then looking very seriously at the budget for next year, or for the next couple of years. The figure that's floating around is if you want to have all 60 members of the band fully uniformed, you're probably talking $50,000. Is that right, Lee? That was the number floated. You can do that in a couple of ways. 1 year gulp, which could be possible or not, or over a 2 or 3 year plan. And we're doing the same with athletics so that we replenish on a multi-year plan, which is a smarter budgetary approach than trying to do everything in 1 year. So that's the announcement on band uniforms that I wanted to share with you. Anything from pupil personnel services or anything you'd like to say on our Sandy Hook promise? Greg.
Dr. Valente and members of the board and the community. Just very quickly, Sandy Hook Promise, the preparation for launch is underway. We had a kickoff event with our school teams and our school leaders and our district team and district leaders. And today we completed for our school leaders who will be managing the system. It's a lot more complicated than the YouTube videos make it appear. And that is why we have such a detailed implementation plan. So we've gotten trained today. We're working on the next steps will be testing our school team leaders to make sure we can use this management system. It's an online, absolutely, data privacy protected software system. But we need to be able to use it to manage a tip. When a tip comes in, we need to know how to get into the system, manage it, get the information that's needed to the right people. So we underwent training. We're going to do a kickoff of making sure we're all able to go into the system. And then we're going to be rolling out how do we train our students to understand what the system is, to understand what being a good upstander is. Once we do that, we will also simultaneously be sending something out to our parent community to let them know what's going on, that there's trainings in school, just for the board to know and the community to know. The training for students is a video produced by Sandy Hook Promise. It is approximately 30 minutes in length. But there's a lot of discussion with our staff and our teachers so that they can uphold the teachings of Sandy Hook Promise. So we hope to do that end of October. We hope, if everything goes well and we pass our test as educators with our system, to be sometime early November doing student training and kicking off and going live. And we will communicate that with our internal school community and our external school community as well.
Good. Thanks, Greg. And I had the pleasure, I go to all the superintendent meetings, Southern Westchester and Lower Hudson. And last Friday at Southern Westchester, they asked about programs that would be helping students and a faculty and community to address this issue. And I mentioned we were very proud to be part of the Sandy Hook Promise. And they did ask for information from us. They would like to pursue it. So we represent in Southern Westchester 36 districts. So they may be asking for more information from us as to how we're progressing with the Sandy Hook Promise program. And I saw an article just today from upstate New York, Questar BOCES, number 3, I think it is up there. They've gotten about 20 districts together in a similar model, and they mentioned the Sandy Hook Promise. So I see this catching on throughout the state, and the technology is pretty direct, and they're using similar technology up there to what Sandy Hook does use. So this is something to watch, and we commend the board for being innovative and getting online first for this thing in New York State. Okay, so that concludes my report, and we can proceed from here. Good, thank you.
And thank you again, Greg, for taking this on. We really appreciate it. Okay, so we are up to the consent agenda. Oh,
Questions on the report?
oh, okay.
Okay. Doc, not on your specific report, but I just want to ask the question that I raised at the last meeting. Narcan, have we ever made any progress on investigating the possibility of getting that into our schools?
Yes, but why don't you answer that, Greg? I think
we do have Narcan in our health offices.
We've always had it?
I can't track it.
Not that it matters, the fact that we have it is great.
Yeah, I can tell you with certainty that we actually have it.
That's
I
terrific.
can't tell you exactly when, but I don't believe this is the first year.
Doesn't matter, but
we have it.
we have it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've asked forever and ever and ever, and nobody's ever said, yes, we have it.
Yeah, we've had it since the passage of the time that they made it available to us.
And
We've
people are
had it.
trained how to use it?
Yes, all of our.
All of our nurses are trained how to use the Narcan. They're training pens, they go through all that.
Very
and-
glad
and
to
they
hear it.
have
I'll take it off my list.
Your dwindling list of 25, right?
Yeah, well, that wasn't on the list of 20.
Oh, see, now you're cheating. I thought it was one of the 25.
And my other question is basically on guidance. Am I being timed? No, it's on guidance. And I appreciate, that we're going to look at a guidance director possibility. I just point out that we've done that twice already. We've been down that road twice, 2 different times. Both times didn't work out for whatever reasons, but I still think we need to talk about there needs to be a better way to deliver guidance services. And the thing that I bring up that is always that a child has a guidance counselor based on their last name. And you could have a family that has 2 completely different children that in my mind would need 2 different guidance counselors. You could have a very academic student, you could have a very athletic student, you could have a very artistic student. And I think a better service, and I don't even know if this is done anywhere, okay? But I think it just needs to be looked at and discussed. If it is done anywhere, what are the pros, what are the cons? Is the way we're doing it the best way out there? There could be guidance people that, I know if you have 3 kids that are looking to go to the same college and they have 3 different guidance counselors, well, maybe we should have someone that specializes in a college. Like, let's say you have 3 kids that want to go to Binghamton, okay? You shouldn't have three guidance counselors working to get 3 kids into Binghamton. And, I don't know what's involved in revamping it or reinventing it, but there's got to be other models out there that, in my mind, will do a better service to our kids. So I just want to throw that out there and see if we can, when we're looking at guidance this year, that we could, kind of get out of the box and look at some different methods to deliver guidance services. And, like I've always said from the beginning, and I was very encouraged at our administrative meeting early in the summertime, when we are going to build a portfolio for each student on what their likes and needs and interests are. Well, as that portfolio gets up to, the end of middle school and high school, maybe that's what directs the person, the child, to the guidance counselor that will serve them the best, as opposed to their last name. Okay? So I'm just throwing it out there. We don't have to discuss pros and cons today, but I'm just,
right.
It's something that, I think we should really take a look at.
Well, I think we now have a vehicle, the District Advisory Council, that would be public meetings where issues like that could be raised and a certain amount of research could be conducted about different methodologies out there. There are different methodologies. My granddaughter went to camp for 7 weeks this summer, and the methodology of what is the best place to put Kaya was applied through computer software in terms of the types of kids who applied, profiles of the child, and the mixing and the matching, that this seemed to be kids with similar interests that will be bunking together, all right? You go to college, and a lot of colleges use software in terms of putting students into dorms. So there are methodologies that do use profiles, features, characteristics of particular students. And would that be applicable to a guidance counselor? Is that possible? Right now, we use criteria, whether it's putting together a second grade class for next year, all right? How do you do that? What criteria do you use? Does the child have a friend? And minimally 1 friend in that class, all right? And several other elements about the child's need, and then that's packaged together in some type of a classroom unit, and this child is placed. So I think there's room for us to use it with the people that we have right now to begin to look at different opportunities, okay? We have the vehicle for getting that, opening that discussion.
Excellent. And last, I think we could also have have a reach out to our alumni, because there are people in this community that interview for schools, okay? They're affiliated with their alumni association and colleges and stuff. And, you know, we could reach out to them as well and have a group that will help, you know, give kids the lowdown of what's, you know, who better to hear from about a school than somebody who's either there or was there recently, you know?
And we're not limited at our advisory council. I mean, if there are alumni out there, graduates of Eastchester High School, who would like to be on this particular committee, so 21 becomes 22 or 23 spots, but they are stakeholders, they are recipients of the school. So yes, we have, again, a vehicle for allowing that.
Okay, thank you.
We're going from a closed system, not by anybody's decision, other than the way that it was structured in every district throughout the state, to now a more open system using the advisory council that begins to, open the windows, so to speak, aggiornamento.
Open the window, you get fresh air.
That's right. And a new look, perhaps. Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? All right, so who would like to move the consent agenda? Anyone?
I'll move it.
Okay, thank you, Jackie.
Be it resolved that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda, which includes the following: 7 minutes, 8 personnel agenda, 9 Committee on Preschool Special Education recommendations, 10 pupil personnel recommendations, 11 educational and curriculum and instruction, 12 business office recommendations, 13 other business items.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, thank you, Christine. Any discussion? All right, all in favor? Okay.
I love that part of the
All right, future meeting dates, October 25th, regular meeting, and November 15th, work session. We are up to comments from the public, but it is very quiet here tonight. Okay.
I might point out our Director of Security is here to ensure. They may have heard that John was going to be here and said, oh no, I'm not going there to create problems.
Okay. Any comments from the board?
I have a few, actually. At the last meeting, I had brought up the common values that I want to talk about, and I want to keep that on the radar as we go along this year. But I did a little more investigation. I just wanted to share this with the board, and I'm going to share these documents. But you know, the more you look out on the internet, there's all this information out there about, you know, common values and community values. And I came across this thing, and Doc, you might be aware of this. Scott, you might be aware of this. I was not aware of this. There's an initiative at New York State called the Civic Readiness Initiative. Anybody ever hear of it? You have?
Yeah.
Great. I read through this thing, and lo and behold, 90% of the words I used in my value statement are found in this document, okay? They talk about readiness is the ability to make a positive difference in our public life of our communities through the combination of civic knowledge, skills and actions, mindsets and experiences. New York State Board of Regents is committed to civic education that empowers all students to make informed decisions for the public good as members of culturally diverse democratic society in an independent world. Civic education facilitates the development of civic competencies which are needed for the democratic society to flourish. Through civic education, students learn how to identify and address problems in their community or school community. They talk about key civic mindsets students should develop in grade level appropriate ways, valuing equity, inclusion, diversity, and fairness, recognizing the need to plan for both current needs and the good of future generations, committing to balancing the common good with individual liberties, respecting fundamental democratic principles such as freedom of speech, freedom of press, and the rule of law. A lot of those things were exactly the same words that I had read at our last meeting. And I'm going to send everybody this link, And I'd really like to keep this, on our agenda, moving forward. Someone from the public after our last meeting made a suggestion that we come up with a list of words and put them out in some kind of a survey and take the results and develop a word cloud. You guys might have seen that in the Board of Ed mailbox. I thought that was a great idea, but we have to come up with that list. And then we have to put it out and get the feedback from the community. And I just want to read one other thing, which is really short. This is a graduate school put out. We owe it to one another to uphold certain basic values of the community. And they're talking about the community of the graduate school. Conscientious pursuit of excellence in one's work, respect for the rights, differences, and dignity of others, honesty and integrity in dealing with all members of the community, accountability for personal behavior. Again, that's all the stuff that was on my list. So I think we as a board need to discuss this thing, come up with a list, and a good plan would be to put it out there to the community, get some feedback on it. Maybe we do a word cloud, because all this stuff that's out there on the internet deals with developing what your community believes in, because from it comes your goals, your mission statement, okay? In hiring a superintendent, we had that article that we read that when you're hiring a superintendent should understand the values of the community. Well, yeah, we have a mission statement, we got goals, we got our beliefs, but we don't have a value statement. So I just want to keep it in the works, okay? So
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Vito. What I'd like to do at this point is take a roll call vote from the board and have every board member contribute and say something, and just give us your thoughts about, is this something that you feel that you would like for us to pursue and take this project on at this time? Is it something that you don't want to? I'd like to hear from everyone just to get your thoughts. So who would like to?
I'd love to hear from everyone,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Mhm.
But I don't think a vote is in order, because we're not really voting on anything.
Well, I think
we just want to continue to discuss it. So I'd
Well-
love everyone's opinion and input.
Well, I'd like everyone's opinion whether they'd like to continue this discussion or not, if this is a project that they'd like to take on.
It was a recommendation from the DEI committee to come up with common values that we could all agree to. So, I mean, if we're not going to do that, then personally, I think there's a problem. Then why did we even have a DEI committee? And, so believe me,
Well, the DEI committee came up with recommendations, but did they say that the board should be coming up with community values, or is that something that a committee should be?
So
Go ahead, Matt.
I think, Vito, that I said last time, I think this all makes sense. I just don't know if we should be the ones to do this. And the community, we're talking about community values,
you
right?
come up with a list and you get
Can you
feedback from the community.
Let me just finish my thought. What I said the last time was, perhaps there's a way for us to establish a committee first before we come up with things. I would much rather hear from people in the community, and I think we actually got some public comment from folks in the community, someone you had reached out to prior, that actually said, I think you guys have more important things to work on. I initially agreed. I don't agree. That kind of stuck with me slightly after last meeting. Additionally, I think, as I said, if we want to start a committee to bring in people from the community, and part of that perhaps should be from the town supervisor's office, other constituents throughout the committee to put that together, we can agree to disagree. In theory, I get what you're saying. I just don't know if we're the ones to come up with those words. I think there's a role that we play in that, but I don't think the school board develops community values.
It's not community
unto
values.
itself.
It's a list of common values.
You call them community values.
In the beginning.
Right?
Same with the word.
So
Because there was some.
Got it. But even if it's common values, and it's
Yeah.
something that the entire, I don't want to mince words, but whether they're community values or common values, I think in theory it sounds great. I don't disagree with it. I just don't know if that's something that solely lies with us to do, is my point. So, I want to give everybody an opportunity to talk.
Well, I honestly, if I could just answer that.
Well, actually,
I would
could we
welcome
just-
doing
could
it
we
as
just-
a community, yeah.
I'd like
As a
everyone to
committee.
speak first before we go back and forth. So thank you, Matt, for that. Who would like to speak next?
Maybe I'll go around.
Yeah, sure. Whoever. Christine? Okay.
If I
can get this to work. I think in our last meeting, I sort of echoed what Matt said. I don't know if this is something that we should be doing. I really think that those statements should kind of come from the town or Colavita's office. I don't really see the importance of it, considering that we've got such an insurmountable job to do. I mean, we're now 2 years post-COVID. We're trying to get things on track. I'd rather see our efforts go towards the education of our students. And frankly, I mean, I know each school has their mission statements that encompasses these words. I mean, we just saw what Waverly has. I know Ann Hutch has their values. I know that there's a plaque here at the high school. I just don't know in terms of really at the end of the day what the purposes of this for. I mean, we hired Dr. Valenti without this goal statement. I just think our efforts are better set for helping our kids as opposed to morphing some ambiguous idea and theory.
Okay. Lori?
Yeah, I have to agree with Matt and Christine. I do agree with the community values. I want to live by those values, but I just don't understand what are we doing with these values? I mean, each school does have a mission statement already. I feel like we do, if we're going to go ahead with it, we should form a committee, not just the board, make these values. And I also feel like we have to prioritize. Well, we have a lot to do, and I think the education of the students is our top priority right now.
Thank you. Jackie?
Sure. I do want to acknowledge that I think there's a very good intent behind these values. I think at this time, it's a bit verbose, and the message, I feel, will get lost and cause more confusion. And I know if we're not really including all constituents with coming up with the values, then I feel like it might leave out certain groups. So while I definitely acknowledge the good intention behind it, I think that at this time, it might not translate to that.
Okay. Judah?
So my take on this is it stems from a problem. And the problem is, as a school district, we've talked about missions, we've talked about visions, we have the vision of the graduate, we have the vision of the district, and we don't have an overarching set of clear, I'm not sure even that values is the right word.
Maybe it's not the right word.
But a clear vision of what we as a school district are trying to accomplish and what we stand for, right? And I acknowledge that that's something that I think we need. I also agree that what you put together, while very thorough, is also, you know, when we did the strategic planning committee, one of the things we talked about was, as a strategic planning committee, we wanted to have the vision of the graduate, which was what we were focused on, be something that emanates through the education in this district, that teachers could reflect on, that teachers could speak about, even at kindergarten level. How do you compare that? And you can't do that with a 3-page document. You can do that with a set of 5, 6, 8 bullets, right. If we could find something like that, I'd be much more supportive of something that drives what we're trying to accomplish, because ultimately educating the students, right, within the guidelines of the community desires does have value. So I don't think it's a bad idea to maybe perpetuate this with the strategic planning committee or something to steer us in that direction. I don't think it's a bad idea to put it into some kind of committee. Or maybe part of the DEI committee, I don't know. And that's for us to work out. But I also think there is value in what you're requesting. I just think we need to wrap around it a little bit to put it into something that really can be those set of values or that statement that everybody, every teacher, every parent, every student can understand is where we stand, what we stand for, what we're trying to accomplish. And I would like to see that, and I do think that has value. You know, so again, I think your intents are right. I think some of the details were you know, maybe.
I do admit that what I read last week was very long, okay? But but I read it in that format. I didn't read it in bullets. And I have a page of it in bullets that basically lists.
It's got to be like 5 bullets or 8
Well,
bullets.
you know, Harvard here has it in 4.
There you
Okay?
go. Right.
They have it in 4 bullets that have like, 6, 8, 10 words in each bullet, and I just listed the words separately. So, yeah, I'm sorry. You want to go to the next person.
Thank you, Judah. Michelle?
Yeah, and I'm just going to echo the same sentiment. I just feel like at this time, I feel it's more appropriate if it went into a committee and be handled that way. I just feel like there's so many other things that, as Lori said, that we want to get to, that this for me is not a top priority at this time.
Okay. I'll go last. Okay, so I agree. I'd like to, I think as a board, we have other things to focus on, and I think it would be more appropriate if this went into a committee so that it could be made up of community members and teachers and get input that way. I don't think it would be fair, really, for a board of education to come up with these values. So I think, I don't know which committee this would go into. I'm not sure. I mean, maybe that's something that we can discuss if you want to.
I only want to continue the discussion. I'm not saying let's vote on this tonight, okay? But we have to push forward on this because, Chrissy, you brought up the thing last year about the kids that are going from 8th grade to other districts, We have a vision of a graduate and all that stuff, but people looking to buy houses in Eastchester, we have an Eastchester covenant, which is, according to Dick Forliano, is one of the last ones or earliest, I don't know what it is exactly, but it's still in existence. And that is something that's very important to our district because it's what our district was based on. And we need some kind of a foundation blocks. And all of these articles that talk about how to create, value statements and even the Civic Readiness Agreement, it's all about, and it is about education. This is not about education. This is about the fundamentals that are underneath your curriculum, that everything you do is built on these fundamentals. At the beginning of the year, I remember some people made a very big deal that the Pledge of Allegiance wasn't being said in the classroom on day one. Well, you know what? I think that our values say it has to be day one and every day. And, we've talked about playing a national anthem at our sporting events. We do it in the playoffs. Do we do it at our regular events? I don't know. But I think that's a value that this district holds dearly. Okay?
All right, so
and those
why don't
things
we...
are important.
We'll discuss this after, the meeting about moving this into a committee. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
So, do I have a motion to adjourn? Okay, Jackie, do we have a second? All right, all in favor? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay. Good night, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, and thank you, Jeanette, for being our deputy clerk tonight.
Yes, thank you, Jeanette.